Hello again, once more in an outdoor setting for reasons that are too complicated to explain. I'm sure that most viewers will be only too aware of the movement afoot to compensate African Americans and black people from the islands of the Caribbean for the experiences which their distant ancestors underwent 200 years ago. Many of us find the idea of paying money to people today for things which happened to their great 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 grandfathers very odd. But we will leave that for the moment and ask ourselves why, if this has been determined to be a sensible and ethical course of action, it has been decided that only black people should be the beneficiaries. I say this because, of course, well over 1 million Indians were also taken from their own country under the scheme of indentured servitude and thus ended up living thousands of miles from their own country with no realistic prospects of ever returning home. When slavery was abolished in the Caribbean, the British began taking people from India to replace the black slaves and work on the plantations. These people are known in the Caribbean today as either coolies, which is a rather ill-mannered expression, or Indo-Caribbeans. Few people in Britain are aware of this. It's the same reason that there were a lot of Indians living in African countries such as Kenya and Uganda. This is also why many Indians are to be found today in Mauritius and Fiji. There was a good deal of deception and sharp practice involved by the British in luring these people away from their own country, and as I say, well over 1 million of them were involved. What one notices, though, is that one never hears of the descendants of those people agitating for handouts. Perhaps the reason is that these Indians in general are doing better than either black or white people today. In Britain during the 1950s, 60s and 70s, many people arrived from former colonies like the islands of the Caribbean and the countries of the Indian subcontinent, India and Pakistan. Families of Indian heritage also came to Britain from Africa, having felt the need to leave countries such as Kenya and Uganda. Those leaving Uganda came to Britain as refugees, having been stripped of all their wealth and belongings. It's impossible to track the origins and progress of all families belonging to various nationalities or ethnic groups, but we are certainly able to see today how well they are doing relative to the average British citizen. According to the Office for National Statistics, or ONS, a department of the United Kingdom government charged with the collecting and publishing of data on life in the British Isles, there is a great disparity between those who come from Indian families, how they're doing, as opposed to black people who come primarily from Africa and the Caribbean. The highest incomes, more than £1,000 a week, are earned by 28% of British people overall. There's wide range and variety, though, between the ethnic groups who make up that average. Two figures are of special interest. Among those of Indian origin, 46% are earning at this highest rate, while only 20% of black people are doing so. The percentages are reversed the lower down the income scale one moves. Looking at those who earn between £300 and £399 a week, which makes up 11% of the population, it may be observed that just 6% of Indians fall into this bracket, set against 15% of black people. We note too that rates of unemployment for those of Indian origin are half those for black people. 8% of black people are out of work, while only 4% of people of Indian heritage are in this position. This explains at once why those Indians, who are the descendants of the people shipped off into indentured servitude, are not queuing up for handouts, or I should say reparations, because they have proved able to get on better than anybody else, while the descendants of the slaves are not. The reason for this is certainly open to debate and would be an interesting subject to explore in a later video.